Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, let's get our final session. First, I want to thank everyone for coming out and working very hard. This is some of you will never come to another Innovation Summit because it's like too tiresome, right? And hopefully many of you enjoyed the engagement. Thank you. It really makes a huge difference. So what we've asked these three people somehow all got the wonderful duty to sort of share. For the rest of you, each of us had to make a choice about whether we wanted to look at Sit in the Alaska group or the Juneau scenario group or the Tongass Forest Plan Revision group. So what we've asked each of them to do is for the benefit of the 2/3 that weren't in your group, we'd ask them to share a little bit of what they experienced and some of the thoughts and conclusions from the group, if any. So, shall we start? You grab that little mic next to you. Have at it.
Testing.
Okay.
Wait, it works. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Caraway. We were in the statewide group, and we had a lot of the general comments that we had. Everyone seemed to really enjoy the process. Some thoughts like the way that we were able to think through and dig deep into these topics and really look beyond the surface area challenges and questions that we're facing as a state. A lot of people really complimented the hands-on approach. When it came to things that we thought could be done better, clearer processes, part of it being just that this is, as Kai kept saying, this is like a 3-day workshop squeezed into 15 minutes. So trying to do so much with so little, it was a challenge. And we also recognized that we needed a greater diversity of voices, that we had a lot of similar backgrounds and similar ideas. We were missing a lot of voices that we thought were very important to the topics in which we were speaking or discussing. With that abbreviated process, the three things that really came out that had the most attention from all of the ideas that came out of the process today was to invest in education from kindergarten through death, hopefully a much long time after that, involving more indigenous voices, economic diversification, and increasing options for housing within the state. So that's what we came up with in the statewide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Erin?
Hi there, I'm Erin Walker-Tolas, speaking on behalf of the Juneau group. I do feel, and forgive me, group, if I'm misrepresenting your experience, because I'm just here talking. So I think in general, I think it was a really enjoyable, I did enjoy, we had 6 scenarios that we looked through, and one of the first things a lot of us did was say, well, how would that even work? How can you have more people in Juneau, but you didn't address housing at the city level? So we dove into, well, does that make sense? Does that not make sense? But once we got over the hump and realized that, okay, just go with it, just see how could that happen anyway. Use your imagination and get more comfortable with, okay, this seems odd, but let's just, go through the process. I think one of the things that I really noticed was, because we've looked at some of these scenarios, and other than Goldilocks, in general, it was like doom and gloom, and we're kind of fighting each other for the most depressing scenario. The capital left, and there's no housing, and there's no young families. And the school's broke. Once you got past the hump, though, but then we started looking for opportunities, and I was really impressed with the fact that folks were like, yeah, but, okay, I'm looking at you. I'm like, yeah, but having a lot more young people in town is an opportunity. What would we do with that? How would we deal with that? And I noticed that we were looking at a little more out of the box thinking than I'm used to in these kind of experiences. Okay, well, we don't have as much money, but we have young people who are energetic. How do we leverage that? What resources do we have other than cash? And I really appreciated that perspective. Somebody came up with the idea of rebranding RAIN to attract people to move to Juneau. So this is very out of the box thinking. I think in general, yes, it was challenging to do all this sort of on the fly and fast, but we did get to the point where we're over there picking and voting on our different scenarios, and I think there were some pretty audacious suggestions, as well as a lot of identification of low-hanging fruit. So I think in general, yes, but I think we did have a good mix of people because we had local government, we had social services, we had business owners, and I think that mix of perspectives was really key to coming up with those ideas that I don't think would have happened with a more homogenous group. Thanks.
Okay, my name is Gail Cheney, and I was with the Tongass Plan Revision Group, and we had a little bit of a different objective than the rest of you. We were kind of learning a little bit about the scenario planning process, but not really doing the scenario pieces that all of you did. So we really, when I walked into the room, I was thinking, that it could be very divisive, and I was really pleased that I felt like everyone really engaged and tried to figure out how to work together. So at the very end, we kind of did a popcorn session with all of our folks, and we asked, what was your learnings over this next session? And we talked about critical uncertainty. We thought there'd be a lot more, but there were fewer, and they were more aligned than we thought they'd be. Overlapping values was one of the things that we tended to see across the session. And I love this quote, "It popped my preconception bubble." I'm stealing that quote. And then there was a big learning around the need for collaboration over just multiple different activities. We had a lot of diversity within tourism, and we talk about it as if it's one very large single type of thing, and it's very big and it's very diverse. And then we talked about, we had some common themes around capacity and how to manage use. So those are the things that we learned in our session. Thanks.
Thank you. You are all excused. Thank you. So
It wasn't me.
now I'm going to invite three people, you know who you are, to the stage. And as they're making their way to the stage to have a seat, I want to take the second. No, I want you to come up. But I want to thank all of you for the engagement. I also want to thank the staff at JDC who've worked very hard to make this happen. Yes, thank you for that. Yep. Have a seat. Have a seat. Thank you for that. That means a lot. And we've had a lot of collaborators, not just JDC, but lots of partners that have helped make this happen. So as is tradition at Innovation Summits, we invite the folks that have at least traveled the farthest at our direct invitation to speak to us, offer, because they're not from here, offer some comments. And we decided we invite Barbara because of our partnership with the Forest Service and the importance of the Tongass Forest Plan. So we've just asked them to reflect a little bit on this experience at the summit. So should we start with Peter?
Sure. Should I just sit here and
Grab the mic and yeah, however you want to do it.
Does this work? Ah, that does work. All right. So I just was taking a few notes and just wrote this down. So, but I'd be excited to talk to you about it. But this is a really complex world that we live in with really complex problems that morph and change based on the social, political, economic, and environmental pushes and pulls around us. What I'm learning is that the only pathway through complexity is constant learning that leads to constant adjustment in our actions. The only way through this is for our leaders to listen and our community to participate in thoughtful discourse. And that's what I heard in these last few days. This is what public input and community dialogue should look like and should feel like. An engaged group of people envisioning their desired future and thinking about how to get there. So I'm really inspired by the incredible teams of people who are tackling these challenges. You know, we always talk about the protection of really important resources, but what you have here is likely the most important resource of it all, which is you have amazing people whose traditional lands we now reside in, people in each of the organizations who are participating and leading these processes, from the JEDC to the U.S. Forest Service to the university to the business community and the participating public from all over Southeast Alaska. And I can hear your passion and love for the land and its history and for this community and for each other. So these processes will be transformative and forward-thinking and collaborative and multi-layered and complex and messy and frustrating and exciting and really meaningful. And you're at a really amazing moment where all the parts have the will and the relationships to make this happen. And I believe that you will show the rest of us how to deal with our messy but beautiful future. And in so many places in our society, we've lost our way. But the Southeast Alaska community, along with the sovereign tribes and the community leaders, can provide us with a blueprint toward a better future. So thank you all for letting me witness and be a part of your amazing and passionate and personal work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter. Barbara, some thoughts?
So for those of you that I might not have met yet, my name's Barb Miranda, and I'm one of the 2 deputy forest supervisors on the Tongass National Forest. Brian asked me to stand in for Chad Van Ormer, who was one of the keynote speakers here. And I was thinking I could maybe channel Chad, but I definitely have a very different style than he does. So I think I'm just going to be myself up here. And the theme of my closeout is really kind of everything, everywhere, all at once. So some of that messy chaos that I think Peter just alluded to is kind of how I feel about the Tongass Forest Plan revision, except we have a really great coordinator for the whole thing. So she gets us on track whenever she's sitting back there. Raise your hand, Erin. But I feel too that, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in what is the path forward for Southeast Alaska. And that's where that feeling of everything, everywhere, all at once comes from. Like, how do we engage in this big plan revision? How do we frame things so that they're understandable and people feel like they can meaningfully engage and provide input and that it becomes part of the plan? And I feel like some of the tools that we've been given here in these last 2 days, it way exceeded my expectations. So thank you so much, Dr. Scenario, and Peter, who I've known since time, I shouldn't say since time immemorial. I've known him for over 20 years, though, back when he was a Yosemite Ranger. But really getting comfortable with being uncomfortable as we engage in these planning efforts that are so important for our region and for our communities is one of the takeaways I am taking from here. I think we're ready. Like when Brian first started talking to us about what he was planning here, we were like, really? Are we ready for this big reveal of the forest plan revision? And we are. And we are because we have these amazing collaborators and we have the amazing resources that are in our tribes, in the tribes and our communities in Southeast Alaska. There's been decades of work to figure out who we are and where we want to go. But there's so many external factors that confound us and have divided us, frankly. And it's been really heartening to lean into the work of JEDC and Spruce Root and Southeast Conference and our other regional strengthening partners and see the threads come together of where we can agree, where we can move forward with a vision, and where we can use cross-sector collaboration to really chart the course to the future that we want. Not to sound trite and to steal your punchline, Brian, but there we go. And I feel like the Forest Service is at a point where we really are listening differently and want to show up in our communities in a different way and show up in forums like this in a different way, and really engage in deliberate relationship building so that what we end up designing together is something that speaks to the local wants, dreams, visions of the communities, the very diverse communities across Southeast Alaska. So really thankful for hearing all the commonalities in our vision, some of the commonalities in our concerns, and knowing that we are ready to pull up our shirt sleeves to work towards the future in all those areas that we tend to disagree. So just really thankful for the forum and the engagement, and looking forward to the process ahead. So thanks for having us, Brian.
Barb, and I guess we're going to leave the last word for... You got to love that nickname, Dr. Scenario. So thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Brian. I think I'll keep my comments short because I've talked at you an awful lot. And what I most appreciate is hearing what you all brought to this conversation. Part of the reason why Alaska still resonates in me is because of the people that make Alaska. And this was just an exemplar of this. We challenged you with all kinds of really tough issues, decisions. We made you confront perhaps some of your fears about the future, and you came out victorious. You came out on the other side saying, wow, but there's these opportunities. There's all these options for us, and that's remarkable. That only happens in a well-connected, well-established, well-loved community. That only happens there. So the fact that you were able to accomplish so much in such a compressed time speaks to the strength that you already have. Just like Peter was saying, this is a unique combination of nonprofits and businesses and government and opportunity here. I mean, just your mere presence and your personalities create so much potential here, and that's huge. And so that's my main observation. I want to say one thing. I just love your quote at the end, because this is the opportunity for dialogue always. He said, as you approach these decisions, being forced to drop your agenda immediately is a really good thing, because it pushes you outside that comfort zone, and it really makes you be innovative. It really makes you think, oh, but what could happen? What could be the possibilities? And as my caricature says, Dr. Scenario, imagine those possibilities, lean into them, think about them often, break down those barriers often, because if anybody can do it, Alaskans can do it. And if anybody can do it, you can do it. So thank you for sharing that with me, and thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Let's give a big round of applause. You may exit. Yes, thank you. And we have just one more item, Lucretia, for us. And we have, while we get set up, I just want to let everyone know that we're going to send a survey to each of you as attendees, and we're going to ask for your feedback, and we really welcome that feedback. We also are committed to sharing the results of these conversations, and many of these conversations we know will need to continue. We hope we gave you a taste of what scenario thinking can do, and then we can make decisions of how we're going to use these tools in the future. So some of you have been to these events, and then you know that one of the fun dimensions of an innovation summit is that there's always an artistic, creative moment. And this year is no exception. And I'm really, really pleased that we have a real special treat for us today. Let me first give the introduction. Nicole Church is with us. She's a member of the Deshitan clan from the Raven Bone House of Angoon. She was born and raised in Akwanani, also known as Juneau, where she currently resides, raising twin boys on ancestral lands. She's a singer-songwriter here to perform an original song called Charting Paths. And I'm just moved beyond belief that we invited her to sing, and she created a song for all of you. This is an original piece of work, and we are all going to listen to this for the first time together. So please welcome.
Check, check. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. It was lovely, and you pronounced everything so well. So goodness cheesh, I appreciate it. Also, thank you to JDC and the Innovation Summit, and to Lucretia Wilson for giving me this opportunity. I wrote this song called Charting Paths describing our deep love and devotion to Alaska as stewards of the land, stewards of the sea, and hope for the future and future generations. Your light shines brightest in the future. Wind is howling in the cedar trees, shooting stars. The northern lights are dancing wild and free. That damp and muskeg trail past we wander victoriously. How could I ever forget you? Traveling north to find you. Cruising along the inside passage, sailing through the fog and lightless night, charting paths for future generations. I was trying to greet you. You. My line you tugged and pulled and I fell far below into the deep blue sea where light ends and sacred creatures that exist are free. Oh, 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 Your light shines brightest in the future. Wind is howling in the cedar trees, shooting stars. The northern lights are dancing wild and free. That damp and muskeg trail past we wander victoriously. How could I ever forget you? Traveling north to find you. Thank you. Thank you all so very much.